Marcus Garvey famously wrote, "A people without knowledge of their history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." Hello everyone, welcome back to Breakage Barriers. If this is your first time here, my name is Blessing, aka Lady B. What I do here is talk about culture. So how does a set of people get to know about their past history, origin, and culture without referring to their ancestors? And this is what we will be talking about today. Ancestors. As you watch, do consider to press that red button and alongside the notification bell so you can get alerted when I upload new videos. For us as a people, we are presently here on Earth. But before our arrival on this Earth, people have existed on the surface of this Earth thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. And each one of us have our own lineage. Lineage is your forefathers, your foremothers. When it comes to your history, it's just the way it is when we talk about child, father, and mother. When a child is born, there's always this knowledge and attachment to their parents, whether alive or not. Every child, every human being wants to know who they are, where they are from, what they are doing here on Earth, what is their purpose here on Earth. We all as human beings have that yearning within us. We want to know who we are. As we journey through life, we want to understand ourselves. And for us to be able to understand ourselves, we must be able to understand the people that we are attached to, or we have lineage to. For that child will want to know who their father is or who their mother is, their grandparents, great-grandparents. Every human being has that yearning. Why? Because it makes us complete. Because every human being comes from a woman. For us to be able to understand ourselves, we must be able to understand our lineage, why we do what we do. By so doing, we'll be able to understand our history better. And because we have history, we'll be able to avert any unnecessary mistake that has happened before, that we can learn from and be able to avert. So history is very important. And attached with history is our ancestor. Our ancestor tell our history. So who is an ancestor? And why do we have to refer to our ancestors? Our ancestors are our foreparents. It's just as simple as that. People who have been before us, who have been in a teachable position to show us the right path on Earth because they've been here before us. So they are able to guide us to safety. They are able to guide us aright. They are able to show us the right path in being able to excel and succeed in this journey of life. When it comes to ancestor, there are two types of ancestors. There's the living ancestor and there's the non-living ancestor. That's the dead ancestors. So that's why in the African culture, it's a widely accepted culture in Africa. So it's not specific to one area of Africa. It's all over Africa. Being able to honor our parents, elders, people who were before us is vital, especially if those people are from our lineage, because they can serve, and mark my words, I said they can serve as the living ancestors. And the dead ancestors as well, when they leave this earth, that's exactly what they do. When they leave, they are able to still guide the living aright. That's if you have the faith in them. But when it comes to ancestor, it's not every human being that becomes an ancestor. Another name for an ancestor is what today is called saints. So for one to be an ancestor, there's a standard that you must meet, whether you're living or dead. There's a standard that is required. It is when you tick all these boxes of ancestorship, that's when you actually qualify to be an ancestor who is able to guide, direct, protect the living from going astray. So it's not everyone that becomes an ancestor. And like I said, another name for an ancestor is what today is referred to as, in the Christian religion, and I think the Muslim religion as well, is what is today referred to as saints. So, of course, being an ancestor, you must have done right. You must have done good. You must have been good here on earth. So there's this African tradition which demands that the younger ones honor the older ones, but of course some adults do take advantage of the younger ones, but we are not going that way now. We are talking more about the ones who haven't taken advantage of the younger ones, but have been able to be there for the younger ones, have been able to direct the younger ones aright, have been able to guide the younger ones and protect the younger ones. Those are the ones that qualify to be called an ancestor. So for every region of Africa, the interpretation of ancestorship is different, but there's great similarities because it's got to do with honoring, respecting the elders. That is greatly promoted in the African culture. And I will always talk about the Christian religion because I can relate to that religion. So in the Christian religion, you see the scripture, the way the scripture is written. It started from the beginning. And when we're talking about the beginning, we are not talking about the present. We are talking about long time ago. We are talking about how it originally started. So for us to be able to understand the present, we must refer to the past. So when sometimes this adage comes up and then they say forgive and forget, that second part, forget, because if you forget, that means you forget the lessons that are attached to whatever has transpired. So we must not forget. It is in not forgetting that we are able to learn lessons. It is in not forgetting that we are able to be better. It is in not forgetting that we are able to not repeat the past mistakes. And we are able to take what happened in the past as a guidance for the present. Not just for us, but for generation to come. Again, in the Bible, I started from the beginning. It started talking about the genealogy of Christian fathers, the genealogy of Jesus Christ. For Jesus Christ to be understood much better, his past was referred to, where his lineage was referred to, where he came from biologically was referred to. And so the scripture said there was Abraham, there was Isaac, there was Jacob, there was David, and so on. All these people, the Christian religion calls them the saints. But all these forefathers are actually ancestors. And they are ancestors to Jesus Christ. Abraham is an ancestor to Jesus Christ. Isaac to Jesus Christ. Jacob, an ancestor to Jesus Christ. David, an ancestor to Jesus Christ. So we are able to correlate these different generations together as they form one lineage from one generation to another generation. So ancestors is very important for you out there to be able to understand yourself, to be able to understand your lineage. You must understand your ancestors. You must understand where your lineage is from or who you are related to be able to understand why you do what you do, you know, because by the time you look back, you see the traces of sometimes the same character. And as well, even the scientists also, in their own terminology, refer to ancestors, but in science it's not called ancestors, it's actually called genealogy. That's why when you visit your doctor, they always ask you the question, do you know of any family history of someone who had cancer? Do you know of any family history of somebody who had this disease or that disease? Or why do you think is important for doctors to ask? Because they need to understand if that has happened in the life of your ancestors, so they will be able to better understand how to deal with that disease in you and be able to give you the right prescription to your path to healing. So ancestors is a very vital part of our lives as a living being. We must learn to understand our ancestors and be able to honor them, not worship them, because that's where the Christian religion had misunderstood the African ancestor worship. They call it worship, but it's actually not worshiping. It's truly meant to be honoring. It's African ancestor veneration, not worship. They are two different words. But what is really confusing in the Christian religion is that the scripture talks about the ancestors a lot to be able to understand Jesus Christ and all the narratives of the scripture. But the same Christian religion frowns so hard on the African ancestral worship. The African ancestral worship, which is something that most African culture presently have lost count of. And I can even attest to some of my Christian friends who, by the way, because of their religion, don't actually want to have anything to do with the understanding of their ancestors, nor acknowledge the place of their ancestors and what their ancestors have done. Not actually understanding that the Christian religion honors the ancestors. But when it comes to the African religion, it's as though the veneration of these African ancestors is against all normality. Our ancestors need to be acknowledged because they have paved the way for us to be able to be who we are, do what we are able to do today, which is something in their own time they were not able to do. So Africans must be able to acknowledge their ancestors because our ancestors sacrificed a lot for us. Just like when you have good parents, they sacrifice a lot for their children. So for that child not to acknowledge the sacrifice of their parents, it shows that child is an ungrateful child or ungrateful children. Thereby, for an African not to honor their ancestors, it shows that they are ungrateful to all the sacrifices that their ancestors had sacrificed for them to be able to have the freedom that they exhibit currently on this earth. Thank you very much for watching. I'll get to see you again. Do take care. Bye.